Thank you, Sarit. I'm excited to give you, compared to last year, I don't know if you've been here last year, but I will give a more advanced briefing about the Northern Arena regarding the UN forces. I'm sorry for my voice and also for my French accent, okay? So you can see here one of the former commander of ENDOF. So they are usually sending, you can see serious people here, even a Lieutenant General, the rank of our Chief of Staff. Kochavi. Okay, it's taking time. So now I think after the two brigadier generals who gave an overview of what is happening in the region, I will go deeper into the Northern Arena specifically. So you can see that there are many players in the north, but I will focus mainly on the UN forces. So for people who don't know, so there are mainly two main forces in the north, plus one kind of observer force. So in Lebanon, UNIFIL, okay, and on the Golan Heights on both sides you have ENDOF, and the observers who are basically supporting both forces. So just a few words about the IDF unit, because I haven't touched about this the unit last year. The unit who is dealing with the liaison with the UN forces in the north, but more than that. So basically I would say the mission of the International Cooperation Unit based in Ramat Aviv in Tel Aviv. So there are basically three layers. Notification, that's basically what we call the military diplomacy. Coordination, it's exactly also what is happening with the UN forces in the north. And cooperation, as you heard, the IDF cooperation with the US Army, or even lately, if you heard about the military exercises in Cyprus. So that's basically the main three layers. So you can see here meetings with the Pentagon and the other US Army officials. Our ambassador in New York with a former commander of ENDOF, who tragically died last April. And here the new chief of the ICU, General Dafrin, talking to the acting commander of ENDOF, General Maureen O'Brien. Yeah, it's taking time. So you can see also meetings with here the fourth commander of UNIFIL, General Stefano Del Col, with the chief of staff. I think this happened just one day before the attack. If you remember, on 1st of September, there was an attack from Hezbollah on the blue line on the Lebanese border, when they tried to target an IDF vehicle with 3 anti-tank missiles. So I think these kind of meetings are also very important for the IDF, because we know that General Del Col, the commander of UNIFIL, is meeting with a lot of officials in Lebanon, including the president, the chief of staff of the Lebanese army. But also from our side, it's very important for us to show that General Del Col has also access to the higher echelon of the IDF. So that's pictures from last year. So this is the former commander of ENDOF, who tragically died on his way to Eilat, Major General Zanziri. And she was the commander of ENSO, the observers who are based in Jerusalem, but they are deploying observers on all the borders, Lebanon, Golan Heights, and even in Egypt. The observers are not armed, they are unarmed, unlike UNIFIL and ENDOF. Okay, but today the situation is becoming a bit complicated. So on the left, General Stefano Del Col, who is the commander of UNIFIL in Lebanon. And here, this is again Brigadier General Maureen O'Brien, and she is the acting force commander of ENDOF, because as of now there is no force commander in ENDOF, and the same, there is actually no force commander or head of mission at ENSO headquarters in Jerusalem. So So you can see here a map of the countries who are contributing troops to UNIFIL. So 44 countries, so you understand the complexity of the UN forces in South Lebanon. Many different cultures, many different languages. And today, UNIFIL has approximately 10,500 troops. So you can see here the map. It's the last map that UNIFIL presented. So you can see mainly 8 big battalions, but you have many forces, including a maritime task force here. That's the first maritime mission in the UN with 6 ships, you can see. And here, from the west to the east, you can see the Italian battalion, a battalion from Ghana, from Ireland, from Nepal, from Indonesia, Spain, and India. Just to remind you, before the war, before the Second Lebanon War in 2006, there were only 2,000 troops, more or less. There was 1 battalion from Ghana in the western sector, and 1 battalion from India in the eastern sector. So from, let's say, 2,000 troops, by 2006 till today, we are now 10,500 troops. So now we'll move to end-off. Again, I will be very short about the figures. Much less, something like 1,000 troops right now on the Golan Heights. This year, compared to last year, there is a new contingent of 170 soldiers from Uruguay. This is new. They came, I think, between the summer and October, and now they are starting to deploy themselves in the area of operation of end-off. So this is last year, what you saw last year. All the red spots are the positions that are not manned. It was last year, like when we talked last January. So you can see that because of the uprising in Syria and when the rebel groups took control of the Golan Heights, most of the UN troops left or get into Israel. So you can see a lot of positions were basically unmanned. And if you remember, here in the south, there was a Jaish Khalid ibn al-Walid, a group linked to ISIS. And in the center, I would say, you have so many.
Are unoccupied positions?
Yes, this is what last year. But just to show you the difference now, this is now what is happening. So there is a slight improvement, I would say. Since last January, there were at least, I think, 6 positions who were taken by end-off. You have new troops from Uruguay. And you can see that if last year, I would say end-off was able to patrol until position 80 and not in the south. So now we can see that end-off is starting to get down south, where ISIS or Jaish Khalid ibn al-Walid was in control of, and they took control of position 85. So little by little, they are trying to regain and to rebuild their positions. So it's a very slow process, but little by little, as you can see, end-off is returning to the area of separation. But still, a lot of positions are, as you can see, in red. So you can see just 2 pictures of UNIFIL. Here it's UNIFIL doing kind of CIMIC, I would say, activities to strengthen the links to the local population. It's very important for them. This is in Tyre. And also kind of a new activity you will see. In the past it was not like this, but end-off started also to conduct activities with the local population. This is in Arane, a Druze village on the slopes of the Hermon. And they basically provided the sport equipment to school children. So we see now end-off becoming more and more active with the local population. So, on the Lebanese side, with UNIFIL, we have a very good relationship with the force commander of UNIFIL, General Del Col. On the Syrian side, the guy who is responsible to liaise, I would say, between end-off and the Syrian regime is General Younes, Ibrahim Younes, SSID, senior Syrian army delegate. So basically, if we want to send a message to the Syrian regime, so we can talk to handoff, and handoff send this message to this gentleman, this general, and then it's going up to the regime. So now I will talk about the reality, what is happening on the ground. Okay? So if this is South Lebanon, okay? I'm sure that you heard about it in the news, what is happening in South Lebanon. So according to this map, according to a map of UNIFIL, it sounds, quiet. The northern arena here is pastoralic, it's green, it's beautiful. I spoke about, the different countries. But if we look closer into the reality, you will see it's not as nice as it should be. It's taking time. Okay, if you remember, in 2007, a bomb attack against UNIFIL near El Khiam, where 6 Spanish and I think there was also some Colombian soldiers were killed by an IED.
By what?
IED, like an explosive device. It was, yes, we understand it was Hezbollah. You can see even in 2011, a lot of hostile actions. It's not only Hezbollah but also some jihadist groups. So most of these explosions occurred on the coast, on the way to Tyre and Sidon. So you can see that the UN is suffering a lot of injuries and casualties. And lately, if you remember, was the movie, the attack in the Majid Zone in the western sector in August 2018. I wanted to put the movie, but this is a picture from the movie where a patrol was attacked, and we know, and I think Sarit did a very good job in identifying the attackers, and we know that basically these guys in civilian who attacked the UN patrol were Hezbollah members. So you saw the map of UNIFIL, but it's look very pastoralic, but this is, for me, the reality on the ground. We made an extensive study of all the incidents, I would say since the Second Lebanon War till today, including the last 1701 report, report number 41. So you can see on this map, in red with the numbers, these are basically frictions or clashes, harassment between UN forces and so-called civilians, but we know that most of them are Hezbollah. You can see all the rockets who were fired into Israel since 2006, so it seems a bit crazy. So all these rockets, you can see here in black, were fired into Israel. I would say that most of them were from Palestinian or jihadist factions, but yet that shows you anyone who claims that there is no Hezbollah or there is no weapons in South Lebanon, this is the reality in South Lebanon. Okay, you can see even the explosive devices in Mandov area, the attack in 1st of September with an anti-tank missiles, sniper fires as well, back in 2010 and in 2013 near Rosh Hanikra, mysterious explosions, okay, of ammunition depots. And as you know very well, in December 2018, Operation Defensive Northern Shield uncovering the attack tunnels of Hezbollah. So that's the reality in South Lebanon. So anyone who claims that there is no Hezbollah between the Blue Line and the Litani River, so that's for us the proof.
Can you clarify the LAF sniper attack of the Lebanese armed forces?
Yes, LAF, it's Lebanese armed forces. IED, it's improvised explosive devices. And so there was a SAM missile, like a Sol-Air missile, basically an anti-aircraft missile, who was fired against one of our drones. He missed it near Nabatie at the end of October.
What's the green dot?
The green dots are also very interesting. These are the so-called positions of a Green Without Borders. It's a so-called NGO who claim, to observe birds and to deal with nature protection. And but if you read the UN reports, the 1701 reports, UNIFIL has no access to them. So what does it mean? You have a lot of areas, what we read from the UN reports, but they are private properties. So you just need to replace private properties with Hezbollah facilities. That's the translation, I would say. Okay, so this is quite amazing, and we will continue to follow the incidents in South Lebanon. So rockets, attacks on UNIFIL, sniper fire, attack tunnels. So it's exactly what General Rami Avnei talked about, but the late Qasem Soleimani tried to basically build to move from two fronts, from Lebanon and from Syria, from the Golan Heights, in one arena. So, also something that to understand about the activities of UNIFIL, 450 activities per day, patrolling along the blue line. If you see sometimes helicopters along the blue line, they are patrolling the blue line. They have quite a budget, but I think now the last budget was a bit less. It's now $474 million. It's quite a lot. Compared to ENDOF, ENDOF has a budget of $57 million. So UNIFIL has a huge budget. But again, when we think about the activities of UNIFIL, 450, let's say, operational activities per day, including patrols. What does it mean? When we read the reports and we see that UNIFIL is trying to increase their activities across the south, and sometimes we succeeded to do 1,000 patrols or even 2,000 patrols. What does it mean? If at the end you're not able to unveil Hezbollah activities, now in my opinion it's a bit problematic.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
All of these attacks against UNIFIL by Hezbollah, why?
Why? Because they have something to hide.
So they're trying to, is that it?
1701, the mandate of UNIFIL says that between the Litani River and the Blue Line, there shouldn't be any armed elements or armed forces apart the Lebanese army. Okay? But what is now happening is that UNIFIL, in order to implement their mandate, they are patrolling the entire area. They are getting into the villages, the Shiite villages, into open terrains, and they are trying to basically to monitor the south and to look for these unauthorized armed elements, including Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the main armed element in the south. So that's why you have so-called civilian guys stopping them, attacking them. You saw the picture with two Humvees even in fire, harassing them and trying to basically to disrupt a UNIFIL activity and to prevent I would say to show the reality on the ground. So compared to last year, now we see that ENDOF is able to patrol almost 95% of the roads in the demilitarized zone. So all of this area is inside Syria. Okay, you have the Alpha line, that's the de facto border. The Bravo line, it's inside Syria, and inside, which is the demilitarized zone, and there shouldn't be, any armed elements or the tsunami is not supposed to be here. But according to the reports of ENDOF, we have issues here because the tsunami has deployed itself, and it's not a secret that Hezbollah now is not only on the Lebanese border, but they are trying also to deploy themselves in front of us in the Golan Heights and inside the demilitarized zone. Okay? Another issue as well from the mandate of ENDOF is that in addition to the patrols they are conducting in the demilitarized zone, they are also doing inspection on both sides. Basically, there are limitations according to the 1974 agreements on the Israeli side, but also on the Syrian side. As of now, again, according to the last report of ENDOF, they are only able to do inspections in the Israeli side and not in the Syrian side. Okay? And here, in the area of limitations on the Syrian side, they are able only to patrol 50% of the area, according to what they say, because of security issues. And by the way, here, there are on a weekly basis clashes between, let's say, former rebel groups, and also even on your map, you mentioned, the sporadic clashes between the Syrian army and former rebel groups, and including the re-emergence of ISIS. Okay, so just to finalize also regarding the two forces, and then we'll open, this session to questions. So, if we look at the two forces and the mandates of ENDOF and UNIFIL, if we look at the tools who are on the ground to basically implement these mandates, in our opinion, the mandate of UNIFIL is has been eroded and becoming less and less relevant. Why? Because we observe the Lebanese army working together with Hezbollah. So sometimes, for example, for the tunnels or for the attack in 1st of September, when UNIFIL wants to go and to patrol and to make an investigation, in this area where Hezbollah fired the anti-tank missiles, the answer from the Lebanese army is, sorry guys, this is a private property. You cannot go there.
And they really launched it from urban areas?
Sorry?
The launching was really from urban areas?
No, according to what I understood, it was from a open area. So again, there was this issue that in 2006, Hezbollah was on the border. We could see them in uniforms, in open ground, and they moved, because of UNIFIL, they moved into the urban areas, into the villages and cities. But even they are able to act from open areas, and they are not able, UNIFIL is not able to patrol there and to conduct investigations. So, some would claim that for such a mission, almost $500 million a year, plus 10,500 troops. Does this mandate, does this mission provide or deliver? What do you think?
Obviously not.
Obviously not. Okay.
If it's not living up to its mandate of 1701, what's the purpose?
Okay, so we'll touch about it. I tend to agree on that specific issue, but the UNIFIL has also a very important mission. Now I will move to ENDOF. ENDOF, again, my opinion, the mandate is completely outdated. It's kind of dinosaur. It backs from 1974. Basically, the mandate of ENDOF was dealing with the separation of two armies. But as Ram Yavne said, what is left of the Syrian army today? So what we have today, it's, I would say, less Syrian army, but more an asymmetric or hybrid warfare with Hezbollah and people in civilians. So how ENDOF can prevent civilians, to move in the area of separation? But so for me, that's why I think the mandate is outdated. And if we look at the tools, 1,000 troops, almost $60 million. What is missing here? If we look at the rate in South Lebanon, in South Syria, the society here is broken. There is after the war, the South, it's a complete disaster, and we see the re-emergence of clashes with the Syrian army and ISIS re-emerging. So I think what is missing here for ENDOF is to help the local population. But this is not in the mandate. Okay? So some would argue that, okay, if we have like $500 million for UNIFIL with 10,000 troops, and here we have just 1,000 troops and $60 million, maybe we should channel some resources from UNIFIL and to help ENDOF. Okay, that's an idea. Now,
but it's two different missions.
It's two different missions, and it won't happen. We've been discussing it with the UN. It's a different system, so we cannot move resources from UNIFIL to ENDOF. That's the problem. So the mandate, we talked about the mandate. We talked about the tools, but interestingly, what is not in the mandate is very efficient. What do I mean? with UNIFIL, if you heard about the trilateral meetings, every month and a half, the IDF is meeting with UNIFIL and the Lebanese army in Nakura to discuss the 1701, the implementation of 1701. So this is not in the mandate, but that helps us to sometimes do deconfliction, to prevent a conflict to happen. So that's why with UNIFIL, the trilateral meetings or the tripartite meetings are very, very important, but again, it's not in the mandate. And here as well, with handoff, we use a liaison mechanism to send messages to the other side, also to deconflict the situation. But again, this is not in the mandate. So that's very interesting. We see the mandates from UNIFIL eroded, handoff, in my view, outdated. The tools, we need to update the tools in order to adapt to the new reality. Some claim that with UNIFIL we need to reduce the number of soldiers because 10,500 soldiers, thousands of activities and patrols every month. But at the end, not one report on Hezbollah facilities in South Lebanon.
Not one?
Not I would say one report and on Hezbollah facilities in South Lebanon. Just what we saw last December with the tunnels, it was an IDF operation, it was not UNIFIL.
So the role of UNIFIL, etc., is more in the field of liaison capacity.
I think
rather than the practical sense of
I think it's a very important mechanism because it helps us to deconflict the situation. So some people claim that we don't need UNIFIL, we don't need handoff, but at the end, these forces are very useful to prevent conflict.
in the sense of the liaison, as far as the liaison capacity is concerned, not in the practical sense of physical capacity of preventing.
Not disarming Hezbollah.
It's mostly in the liaison field. In other words, to have a connection with the other side.
Yes.
That's the only.
Yes, I mean, I think it's one of the most effective mechanism, the liaison system with UNIFIL.
They need 10,000 for that.
That's the question. But we don't need 10,500 soldiers to do liaison. So maybe we should reduce the number of soldiers and boost the liaison capacities of UNIFIL. And now I will go a bit further in the future. We talked about what Ram Yavne talked in the region. So I want to talk about war, a possible conflict with South Lebanon or with Hezbollah, or maybe on two fronts with South Lebanon, with Hezbollah in Lebanon and the other proxies and Hezbollah and the Golan Heights. Just to give you some ideas and maybe to think about the future. So this is an incident happened in 2006, a UN observer post near El Khiyam, Opi Khiyam, who was bombed by mistake by Israel. So think about it. In 2006, Hezbollah had something like 12,000 rockets. Today, how many rockets has Hezbollah?
100,000.
Okay.
What's the answer?
More than 100,000 rockets.
But in the area of operation of UNIFIL, it's about 40,000.
It's I don't know how many between the Litani and the. Okay, but let's say 1,000 of maybe 3 times more than in 2006. Okay, so that's 1. 2 now in the south. In 2006, we had only 2,000 UN soldiers. Now we have 10,500 soldiers, plus Lebanese army. Think of a scenario of the next war. What will happen in South Lebanon? And what could happen to UN troops? Okay?
Can you explain a little bit what happened in El Khiyam in 2006?
Yes, according to my knowledge, I am not familiar with all the small details, but in 2006, we know that Hezbollah used sometimes the UN position to fire rockets into Israel. So you had sometimes, Hezbollah guys with even mortars or rocket launchers just nearby UN positions, and the IDF, in order to suppress this rocket fire, had to target these launchers. And what happened here in the eastern sector, near El Khiyam, there was a UN position with 4 observers, and it was mistakenly been targeted by the Air Force, and we had 4 observers who were killed, and we had to deal with this very unpleasant situation and tragic situation, basically to evacuate the 4 bodies of these observers into Israel, being flown to their respective countries. But I'm saying that was in 2006. Now think about present time. It's much more complicated. And now let's think about the day after the war. Okay, before I should have finished. The day after the war, do you think that UNIFIL and UNDOF would be useful? Because some people are claiming that, okay, we don't need the UN here. We don't need UNIFIL and we don't need UNDOF. But what would happen if now there is a war and we would need, and I would say that, let's say the IDF will not have the appetite to stay in South Lebanon, north to the Blue Line. Who could, basically try to help to stabilize South Lebanon after the war? So some would argue that that's why also UNIFIL would be very useful in being deployed in South Lebanon the day after the war in order to stabilize the South. And maybe some claims maybe that we don't need a UN force, maybe we need to think about something new. Maybe not a UN force, maybe something like in Sinai with the MFO, like a multinational force, but is not under the UN. Or to think about a new concept, I don't know. So this is just, an open remark. So now if you have any questions. Yes.
My name is Taraz, I'm a tour guide. So the bottom line is that UNIFIL is not doing its mission. And my question is it because the mandate from 2006 was not written well, it didn't give enough authority to the UNIFIL forces, or the mandate is written okay, but UNIFIL has not fulfilled it?
That's a good question. First of all, when you are a diplomat and you are sitting in New York and trying to write a resolution, it's very difficult to implement it on the ground because the diplomats in New York, it's one thing, but then when you are coming on the ground and try to implement this resolution, it's very difficult. UNIFIL is doing its best to implement the 1701 resolution, but I think over time it has been eroded because 1, Hezbollah has adapted itself. 2, I would say that UNIFIL doesn't get the political support it should get from the UN, from the Lebanese government. And 3, I would say that even when you look at the region, maybe it's too much for a small force compared to what is happening in the region. For a force just limited by the Litani River and the Blue Line, to deal with the regional trend, because what is happening with Hezbollah, it's not only in South Lebanon, it's also on the border between Syria and Lebanon. It's north to the Litani River, it's now on the Golan Heights, and even deeper in Syria. So I think UNIFIL has been challenged by these regional trends. But they're trying their best.
So you're also a diplomat, because I didn't understand. Is the problem in the mandate, or is the problem is to take the mandate to just do what is written there?
It could be that it's also an interpretation of a mandate, because if UNIFIL is supposed to have freedom of movement, and they don't, because of Hezbollah, and also because of a part of the Lebanese army.
And the mandate is giving them the freedom of movement?
Yes. They should have freedom of movement, but the reality on the ground is otherwise.
But you said they don't report anything, so those red dots that we saw flashes, they go unreported?
They do report, and by the way, we saw in the last report an improvement in the reporting. For the first time, they added an annex on illegal weapons, because they see some people, not only I would say hunters in South Lebanon, but also Hezbollah guys with AK-47, with Kalashnikov. So for the first time now, they have a full annex on illegal weapons. And 2, if we look at the incidents with UNIFIL and Hezbollah, the clashes, report number 40, there were only 6 incidents reported. In the last report, 14 incident reported. So this is, what you saw on the map. It's only what is reported in the UN reports. But we know that in reality there are much more. But at least we see that this force commander, General Del Colle, is trying to provide a report that is more with more quality, more reporting, to basically to provide a more, I would say, realistic report, what is really happening in the south.
So just a question, you said that they reported in the past incidents, but did they mention Hezbollah in the previous reports?
No, usually the word that in the past they used, it was like civilians or a unfriendly behavior of civilians. In the past they used the word like armed elements, AE, but we know that it's Hezbollah. But I think in the last report we saw an improvement in the reporting. Yeah. Sorry?
It was mentioned
Yes.
Yes.
Does someone turns to Lebanon fulfill the resolution?
Again, sorry, if?
Does someone, some power, turns to Lebanon and tells them, okay, fulfill resolution 1701?
There is pressure. You saw the US trying even to boost and to change the mandate. But the US is not alone. The force is under the UN Security Council, and you have like 5 main permanent countries: Russia, China, France, and the UK. And to tell the truth, I was born in France, but France is one of the countries who is basically trying to block any change in the UNIFIL mandate or in the way UNIFIL acts, because there is a wider problem here. You know that Lebanon is under a political and economic crisis, and some argue in the UN that please don't touch UNIFIL. We have bigger issues with Lebanon. If you touch the UN in the south, and if UNIFIL will be more active, it could destabilize Lebanon and it could cause, a crisis with Hezbollah. So for them, most important issue is now the political and economic crisis of Lebanon. But some in Israel would say, look, that's an opportunity now, because Lebanon needs foreign aid. So let's condition this foreign aid and UNIFIL, and let UNIFIL do its job, to visit, the tunnels, to have more freedom of movement, and for the UN also to deal with what we call the precise missiles project. But this is, not mainly in South Lebanon. So it's complicated. Yes.
One question: if you're talking about solutions, some sort of solution to fill in the vacuum, would it be wishful thinking to encourage some sort of, like in the Kurds in northern Iraq and Syria, a Druze autonomy region from Jabal al-Druze to the northern part of, some Druze identity, or to be affiliated with Israel?
Wow, that's beyond the. First of all, the Druze in South Lebanon, they are a minority. They are only in the on the slopes of the Hermon. So the South Lebanon is mostly Shiites. You have some pockets of Christians, and in the east, so unlikely. Most of the Druze in Lebanon are in the Shuf, in the mountain, not in the south.
But on the Golan Heights, they are the majority, I believe.
No, so in the Golan Heights, but not no. Jabal Druze, yes, and some villages in the in the Hermon area. But maybe Nir can talk about that. But I will not talk about the UN. Yes.
We all know it's not a question of if, but when there'll be some kind of outbreak of conflict. Let's hope it's not something that will happen. But the idea is of preparing for any scenario that could happen. As part of that preparation, is there any thought given by those that are dealing with the daily situation now with UNIFIL on the day after the next conflict by saying, okay, what was until now obviously doesn't work. Here on the table is a proposal for what we think can work. Is there any kind of thinking or movement on that level to just change have a paradigm shift here?
I cannot go into details, but what I can tell you is that in the next, if and when there will be a conflict, the IDF will do its best to protect UNIFIL and to prevent them to be armed in the way. But as I said, think about just as the general picture: 100,000 rockets, 10,000 soldiers, Hezbollah in the middle, the Lebanese army. You understand yourself? Yes.
I would like to ask about such failure of the situation. Why the commanders on field don't turn into New York and say, we felt in the mission the situation that 1701 can be imposed on the area on the Hezbollah organization. So in such case, why don't then the commanders say to the secretaries to turn the problem into the Security Council and maybe to make a new decision to suit the situation and the new direction to confront Hezbollah or other organizations
Look,
in the area. How come that the only side that respect the decision, which is Stephane Cohen, must suffer as a continuation situation from the inability to impose the decision?
Look, what I can say is that the ICU, the unit who is dealing with the liaison and cooperation with, let's say, UN forces, our neighbors and international players. So there is the liaison with the UN forces, but as you understand, so there is also cooperation and communication with different countries. So that's on the UN level, but you have also on a bilateral level, we are also communicating with the countries who are sending troops here. So I would say, and I can say that these countries, or most of them knows exactly what is happening in the south. They know what is happening in the south. The problem is to change the mandate. So that's why I talked earlier, you have a mandate, you have the tools. For example, handoff, how can we change the mandate? Because it should be Syria and Israel if you want to change the mandate. I don't expect Syria to change the mandate anytime soon. So what you can do is, instead of dealing with the mandates, try to impact and influence them with the tools to provide the UN forces with maybe new tools, like we saw with the trilateral meetings, with the communications with the Syrian side, maybe handoff also to deal with the local population, because the local population in southwest Syria it's a total disaster. In these days, and I just show it to near, there is no gas, there is no fuel, it's winter. People are starting to cut their own trees to warm their houses, olive trees, because they have nothing to burn, to have. So I think this is something that we can help. But the mandate, says that both armies should be, kept apart. But now you have a new situation on the ground.
The humanitarian problem.
Yes, okay. and I think UNDOF should be dealing with that, because if it will continue like that, and we start to see it, we have a re-emergence of ISIS. There were at least 10 attacks since last June. ISIS is re-emerging, maybe just a bit deeper inside the Golan Heights, but that's the situation.
In which regions?
Near Dara, near the city of Dara, and east to Dara, we are witnessing attacks from ISIS against the regime. Okay. Yeah.
I have a
Okay.
question. Sorry.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Obviously, there's a gap between what actually exists on the ground, which is about 40,000 missiles, and what is UNIFIL reporting. Okay, there's a gap.
Mm-hmm.
It's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
What causes the gap? Why doesn't UNIFIL report? Is it political? Is it fear of Hezbollah? Is it because they know? Obviously, it's quite known. It can't be like it's not known. So what's the gap? What's the cause of the gap? Is it political, fear of Hezbollah? What is it?
It's both. It's political because they don't get the political support of even the Lebanese government. Don't forget that Michel Aoun, a Christian, who is the president of Lebanon, thanks to who he was appointed? Thanks to Hezbollah. And he is the chief of the Lebanese army. And the Lebanese army, in many instances, prevent UNIFIL to conduct their role, to patrol, let's say, to investigate the last attack on 1st of September. So how can UNIFIL report accurately what is happening when they don't have access? Two, you saw the pictures. they are attacked. Spain lost 6 soldiers back in 2007. So, when you are sending soldiers abroad, I don't expect UNIFIL to fight my war against Hezbollah. So, the Spanish battalion, for example, was very active. But then, because they were so active, they were attacked with an explosive device and they lost 6 soldiers. So should they continue and then lose more soldiers? Ask the Spanish government, they will tell you. Yes, last questions.
Taking out the middleman with the UN, looking at the threats directly between Hezbollah and Israel, it's been almost 15 years since the last war we fought against them. Can you describe maybe some changes in the nature of what to, God forbid, expect coming from the north versus our preparations vis-a-vis?
Idea of preparation vis-a-vis...
Hezbollah attack tunnels versus mobile rocket launchers back in 2006. I'm using the US.
Look, first of all, the difference is, I would say, is in the way Hezbollah is acting. I think they learned also from Hamas. If in 2006 they were more on the defensive, we understand that this time or the next time Hezbollah will be on the offensive. That's why they digged these huge underground tunnels, to take the fighting into Israeli territory and not to stay, on the defensive in Lebanon. 2, firepower. I think they are trying to, their goal is to oversaturate the Israeli airspace with rockets and missiles, and a future problem will be the precise missiles, the PGMs. Okay, and as you see on this map, because even if people say there are no weapons in South Lebanon, we don't see them, it doesn't make sense, because the blue line, basically, that's the front line. That's the front line. Why should, let's say Hezbollah be able to deploy like a defensive lines north to the Litani? This is the front lines. This is Israel, this is Lebanon. And so it is also reflected clearly with all the harassment on UNIFIL. That's, for me, very clear. And you can see here there is a high concentration in the center. So maybe something that also we could do is to ask UNIFIL to boost activities in this area, because here something clearly is happening. And you can see Blade 14. Aita Ashab, where the soldiers were kidnapped nearby in 2006. Look, that's for me a very clear picture of what is happening in the south.
Stephane, thank you very much.
Yeah.